Chapter 13. Pangborn the Red did not realize just how powerful fairy magic is, especially inside their own home. Humans who find themselves transported to the fairy realm cannot leave on their own. Not even great wizards and sorceresses. They are overcome with enchantments beyond reckoning. If the dragon had known this, he would have understood that to enter the fairy ring as a man was to allow himself to be trapped in that form forever. It is unlikely anyone will ever come to help him, for he had no friends to miss him. As for the last George, who had been in the fairy's clutches during the entirety of his dog's journey, Tanith, the baby drake, came to his aid. She offered the unicorn horn in her possession, and the winged beings accepted it as a truly special bauble, much more interesting than half the dragon's gold. They took the horn, and George reappeared, stumbling across the clearing as if he stepped foot inside the ring of toadstools only moments ago. He was immediately ambushed by his faithful friend licking his face. The adventure ended. George the dog reclaimed his name and had to say goodbye to his companion. Tanith no longer wished for a cave. She instead decided to return to the Winter Alps, where she was happiest. She hoped Princess Juna would still want a shadow-colored dragon as a treasurer. The time Tanith had spent with George made it clear that wealth without purpose was cold and lonely, and she missed the warm hearts of the mountain people. They did not care if her scales were red. In fact, they would certainly prefer her without them after all the trouble Pangborn caused. "I will guard their hoard rather than steal my own," Tanith said with a puff of smoke. "If I happen to see Archibald wandering the slopes, I will give him your regards." George the human also made a decision. He had nothing to return to in the Summerlands, aside from his shack, and after hearing all his dog's wonderful stories, he wanted to have his own adventure. The tales of the Blue Buccaneers were his favorites. He would travel with Tanith as far as the cold country, then continue alone to the Spring Lakes, where he hoped to find the Hornswaggle and beg Captain Tom for a chance to join the crew. Even if swabbing the deck and hitting a tambourine were his only talents as a pirate, he was determined to go.
"Good boy,"
George the human said, scratching his dog's ears until one foot thumped the grass.
"You saved my life."
"Of course, master," George the dog replied. "I would do anything for you."
"Then please stop calling me that,"
the lad said.
"We are parting ways for a while. You must not think of me as someone who has sway over you. Think of me only as your best friend."
The dog licked the man's face, and they sat together for a long time. Maybe they played fetch. Maybe they just enjoyed each other's company in the shade of an elm. Afterward, the lad ran off to join the baby dragon, and the dog was left behind, trying not to whimper. George got to his 4 feet and returned to the road. His silver-painted nails clicked along the cobblestones all the way to the Summerlands, through the tall grass, and into the king's city. Inside the castle gate, he spoke to a butler and was quickly brought into the throne room to tell his tale. It was so unbelievable that everyone believed it.
"Only a brave soul named George will succeed where others would fail,"
cried the aged wizard.
"The prophecy was true. Perhaps I too shall go on a journey to discuss this with my fellow soothsayers in countries near and far."
The king rewarded the mutt with satchels filled with bronze, silver, and gold pieces, along with strings of diamonds and pearls. George then left the castle behind and made his way back to the maple grove with a single giant oak, the tree whose shade protected the shack he once shared with his master-turned-friend. Cheerful samara seeds twirled and landed on the path, and George felt less alone as he went inside. Much to his surprise, the shack was not empty. Sitting in the middle of the floor was the orange fox he once met in the form of a spider. She smiled at him with glittering black eyes.
"Welcome home, Hero George,"
the forest guardian said.
"I promised that if you returned triumphant, I would bestow a gift upon you, so I am here."
Out from behind the fox toddled 4 adorable puppies. They all shared George's handsome markings around their eyes. No bigger than rabbits, they yapped and tumbled around the shack. One was brown, one was white, one was yellow, and the runt was red. Perhaps one day they would grow up to be handsome hounds. Perhaps they would accompany the king's sons on many fabulous adventures. Until then, they would live beneath the oak with their father. George jumped for joy and wagged his tail. He greeted his children with licks and snuffles, then looked up to thank the fox. However, she was already gone. And so it was that the wrong George rid the world of a nasty old dragon. He lived happily ever after, surrounded by his family, visiting friends in other countries, and ignoring his fame and wealth. You can still see a white dog running through the fields if you go searching for that giant oak, and George will come bounding over if you call loudly enough. Remember to bring him a treat.